The planet Kareth had been burning for years. Smoke rose like dark pillars across the red skies, and the ground trembled from distant explosions. The humans called it a colony war, but to the native people, the Ralthara, it was the defense of their dying home. Captain Eli Ward had seen too much of this war. He was a quiet soldier, known for his calm nature even under heavy fire. He didn't hate the Ralthara. He just wanted the fighting to end. But each day the orders came: advance, secure, hold. And each day more bodies fell, both human and alien. The Ralthara were unlike any race Eli had seen. They were tall, graceful, with metallic blue skin and glowing golden eyes. They fought fiercely but with honor. Humans called them monsters. Eli had stopped believing that long ago. Still, orders were orders. One night, Eli's unit received a command to scout a ruined settlement believed to be an enemy stronghold. The air smelled of ash and ozone. His boots crunched over shattered glass and metal fragments. As he moved through the broken streets, a faint cry echoed through the dust. At first, he thought it was wind. Then he heard it again, a child's voice, soft and terrified. He followed the sound to a collapsed structure. Beneath the twisted beams and rubble, a small Ralthara child was trapped, his glowing eyes wide with fear. He couldn't have been older than 6 or 7 in human years. "Help, please," the boy whimpered in broken English. His voice trembled. Eli froze. He knew what the rules said: no aid to enemy survivors. But he couldn't just walk away. The child's tiny hand was reaching out through the debris. His heart clenched. Suddenly, a blaster fired in the distance. Human soldiers were advancing. They didn't know the child was there. Another blast struck the ground nearby, shaking the rubble. Eli didn't think. He ran. "Stay down," he shouted as he threw his rifle aside and pushed the debris with all his strength. The structure groaned. He lifted the heavy beam just enough to pull the child free. But before he could move him to safety, a plasma bolt came straight toward them. Eli turned without hesitation. He threw himself in front of the child. The plasma hit him square in the chest. The world exploded in light and pain. He fell to his knees, gasping, his armor glowing red-hot from the impact. The boy screamed. Eli tried to speak, but his vision was fading fast. He heard faint footsteps, alien voices shouting in the Raltharan tongue. The last thing he saw was the small boy clutching his sleeve, crying for help, before everything went dark. When Eli woke, the world was quiet. He wasn't lying on dirt or concrete, but on something soft, glowing leaves that pulsed with blue light. The air was warm, filled with a sweet metallic scent. Above him, the ceiling shimmered like living crystal. He tried to sit up but groaned as a strange pain ran through his body. His chest, where the plasma had hit, was perfectly healed. But faint blue markings now spread from his heart down his arms, glowing like veins of light beneath his skin. A soft voice echoed around him. "Do not move. Your body is still adjusting." Eli looked up. A tall woman stood nearby. Her skin glowed faintly in the dim light, her golden eyes calm but sharp. Her presence filled the room with quiet power. She was Raltharan. "My name is Lyra," she said gently. "You are safe. The child you protected is alive." Eli blinked in confusion. "The boy? Is he my son?" she said before he could finish. "You saved him." He sat up slowly, his mind spinning. "Then you're his mother?" "Yes," she replied. Her tone carried both strength and sadness. "You were dying when my guards found you. I used our life essence to heal you. It was the only way." Eli looked at his arms again. The glowing markings pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. What did you do to me?" Lyra hesitated. "The essence connects life to life. When I used it on you, our energies became one. If you move too far from me, your heart will stop." He stared at her, stunned. "You mean I'm bound to you?" She nodded once. "Your life now depends on mine." Eli tried to stand, but his legs trembled. The idea of being linked to the enemy felt impossible. Yet he remembered the child's face, the fear, the gratitude. He looked at Lyra again. She didn't look like a monster. She looked like a mother. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," he said quietly. "I just couldn't let the boy die." Lyra's expression softened. "You risked everything for a child not your own. That is not something I understand easily, human. Your people destroy, but you saved. You confuse me." He gave a small, tired smile. "You and me both." Days passed. Eli stayed in Lyra's sanctuary, a living structure grown from crystalline vines deep inside a glowing forest. The Ralthara there were peaceful, tending gardens that hummed with energy and caring for their wounded. They were nothing like the war beasts human propaganda described. He watched Lyra often. She was more than a mother. She was a matriarch, a leader of her people. She spoke with authority, her words carrying weight and calm. Her people obeyed her not out of fear, but respect. Sometimes the young boy Kale visited Eli. He brought strange fruit that shimmered like glass and tried to teach him Raltharan words. They laughed together, though Eli barely understood half of what Kale said. It reminded him of home, of a world before the fighting. But every night Eli felt the bond between him and Lyra. It was not just physical. When she entered the room, he could feel her presence before seeing her. When she was near, his heartbeat matched hers. And sometimes when she closed her eyes, he saw flashes of her memories. Mountains covered in silver mist, a young child running through glowing fields, a world before war. He didn't know if it was the bond or something else, but he began to understand her pain. Her people were dying because of human expansion. The mines, the weapons, the greed. It all made sense now. One evening, as rain of blue light fell from the sky, Eli stood near the edge of the sanctuary, staring out at the alien horizon. Lyra approached quietly behind him. "You are restless," she said softly. He turned, his face calm but heavy. "My people will come for me soon. They'll think I've been captured." "They will not find you," she said. "I hid your signal," he sighed. "They'll still come. They never give up." Lyra studied him for a long moment. "You could hate me," she said. "You have reason to. I am your enemy." Eli shook his head. "You're a mother. You did what anyone would do to protect her child. Maybe that's something humans and Ralthara share." Her eyes glowed faintly, and for the first time she smiled, not with arrogance, but warmth. "You are strange, human. I've been told that before," he said with a grin. But as they stood there, the peaceful silence was broken by a flicker on Eli's wrist communicator. A faint signal, human frequency, was trying to connect. He froze. His heart raced, Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They are close." "I can talk to them," Eli said. "Tell them I'm alive." "You cannot leave this sanctuary," she warned. "If the bond breaks, you die." Eli hesitated. He didn't want to die, but he also couldn't let the humans attack this place. "Then we find another way," he said. "I'll help you protect your people. Until they understand we don't have to be enemies." Lyra looked at him for a long time, studying his determination. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "you were meant to come here. Perhaps the bond was never a mistake." Eli didn't know what to say. He only knew that for the first time in his life, he saw the war differently. Not as humans versus aliens, but as two sides of the same pain. That night, as the glowing rain fell across the valley, Eli lay awake. His chest still glowed softly where the plasma had struck him. The blue lines pulsed like a second heartbeat. Lyra stood at the entrance of the chamber, watching the storm outside. She turned slightly when she felt his gaze. "You should rest," she said softly. "I can't," he replied. "Every time I close my eyes, I see your memories. I see what your people lost," she nodded slowly. "And I feel your grief too. The bond shares more than life, it shares pain." "Then maybe," Eli said quietly, "we can learn from each other." Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer and placed her hand lightly over his chest where the glow was strongest. "Your heart beats with mine now," she said. "You are no longer just human." Eli looked at her, his voice low. "Then what am I?" Lyra met his eyes. "You are what the universe needed. A bridge." The words stayed in his mind long after she left, and as the storm faded into silence, Eli realized something deep inside him had already changed. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was part of something greater, something that could end the war. He didn't know how or what would come next. But he knew this. When he took that blast for the enemy's child, he didn't just save a life. He changed two worlds. The next few weeks passed slowly but peacefully. Captain Eli Ward began to understand the Ralthara world in ways no human ever had. The once ruined forests of Kareth were now alive around him. Giant trees glowing softly with energy, rivers flowing with silver light, and birds that sang in crystal tones. Every morning, Eli trained his body and mind under the guidance of Lyra's healers. They taught him how to balance the strange new energy flowing through him. It wasn't just healing, it was alive. He could sense the world differently now, the pulse of the forest, the heartbeat of every living creature, and above all, the steady rhythm of Lyra's life echoing faintly inside him. At first, the bond had felt like a curse. Now he wasn't sure anymore. When Lyra entered the room, his chest glowed softly. When she was sad, he felt a weight inside his heart. When she smiled, warmth spread through him. It was frightening, but strangely comforting, too. Eli found himself drawn to her, not just because of the bond, but because of who she was. Lyra was strong, calm, and endlessly patient. She ruled her people not with fear, but with wisdom. Even though her world was broken, she never gave up hope. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the valley, Eli and Lyra stood side by side on a balcony of glowing crystal. Below them, the Raltharan city shimmered like a sea of stars. "You've changed," Lyra said quietly. "When you first arrived, you looked at us with fear. Now you look with wonder." Eli smiled faintly. "I think I just started seeing you for what you really are." "And what is that?" she asked. "People," he said simply. "Different faces. Same hearts." Lyra's eyes softened. "You speak like a leader," he laughed. "I'm just a soldier who got lucky and survived." She tilted her head. "No, Eli Ward, you are more than that. The bond between us was not an accident. I believe the universe chose you for a reason." He looked at her curiously. "A reason?" "Yes," she replied. "To remind both our species that compassion still exists even in war." Her words stayed with him long after she left. Days later, everything changed. While Eli was helping Kale, Lyra's son, build a small model of their starships, a sudden alarm echoed through the sanctuary. The walls pulsed red with warning lights. Lyra rushed in, her eyes wide. "What's happening?" Eli asked. "The humans have entered our skies," she said sharply. "A retrieval team. They must have found your signal." Eli froze. He had suspected this would happen, but not so soon. "They'll think you're holding me prisoner." Lyra's golden eyes darkened. "They will attack if they believe you are in danger, and we will defend ourselves." He shook his head. "No, there has to be another way." She stepped closer, her voice tense. "If you go to them, the bond will weaken. You could die, Eli." He met her gaze firmly. "Then I'll die trying to stop another war." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she slowly removed the glowing pendant from around her neck, a crystal shaped like a tear. "Take this," she said. "It holds a part of my life force. As long as you carry it, the bond will not break completely." Eli took the pendant carefully. It was warm, almost alive. "Thank you," he said softly. Lyra looked at him with quiet sadness. "You walk into danger to save those who may not understand you. That is what makes you human, and what makes you something more." Eli left the sanctuary, guided by Raltharan scouts until he reached the ridge overlooking the human landing zone. From there, he could see 3 dropships resting on the rocky plain, soldiers in heavy armor moving around them. Their leader, Colonel Hayes, stood near the center, scanning the area with his visor. Eli walked down the slope slowly, his hands raised to show he was unarmed. His armor still bore the marks of battle, but faint blue light pulsed beneath the cracks, proof of the alien bond within him. "Captain Ward," Hayes shouted, recognizing him. "We thought you were dead." "I almost was," Eli replied. "But they saved me." "They?" the colonel said sharply. "The aliens? You're saying they captured you?" "No," Eli said firmly. "They healed me. They protected me. You have to listen. This war doesn't need to continue." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Hayes stepped forward. "Ward, you're not making sense. You've been exposed to alien energy. We have orders to bring you back for testing." Eli shook his head. "I'm not going back if it means starting another fight." Before Hayes could reply, a deep hum filled the air. Shadows swept over the ridge as a massive Raltharan ship descended, Lyra's flagship. Its hull shimmered like living glass, reflecting the twin moons. The soldiers raised their weapons instinctively. "Hold your fire," Eli shouted. "They're not here to attack." The ship landed gracefully. The ramp opened and Lyra stepped out, Kale at her side. She wore ceremonial armor that glowed softly, not as a threat but as a sign of peace. She raised her empty hands and knelt on one knee before the humans. Everyone froze. No Raltharan had ever bowed to anyone, especially not to humans. "This war has taken too much," Lyra said, her voice calm and strong. "We do not seek conquest. We seek survival." Hayes hesitated, unsure what to do. "Why should we believe you?" Eli stepped forward. "Because I'm living proof. They could have let me die. Instead, they gave part of themselves to save me. He touched the glowing pendant around his neck. If we keep fighting, we'll destroy everything. But if we stop now, we might save both our worlds. For a moment, no one moved. Then Kale stepped forward, holding a small flower made of crystal light. He walked right up to Hayes and offered it with a shy smile. The colonel looked at the fragile thing in his hand, then at the child, and finally at Eli. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "Maybe it's time we listen," he said quietly. The other soldiers followed his lead, lowering their rifles one by one. The following days changed history. Representatives from both sides met under a temporary peace flag. Eli acted as the translator and bridge between the two species. He explained the Raltharan way of life, their need to preserve the planet's living systems and the dangers of further mining. Lyra shared her technology, healing techniques, and energy studies that could help humans restore damaged worlds. For the first time in decades, humans and Ralthara worked together. The war officially ended 2 months later with the Kareth Accord, signed beneath the twin moons. But even after peace returned, Eli couldn't leave. The bond still linked him to Lyra. Whenever he stepped too far from her, a dull pain would rise in his chest. She offered to undo it using ancient methods, but Eli refused. "I don't want to sever it," he said quietly. "It's part of who I've become." "You would choose to remain bound to me?" she asked softly. He nodded. "You gave me life. I think part of me belongs here now." Years passed. The humans rebuilt their colonies carefully, this time with Raltharan guidance. Kareth slowly healed, forests regrew, rivers sparkled again, and the sky cleared of ash. Eli became known as the bridge captain, a man who carried 2 worlds within him. He trained young ambassadors, human and Raltharan alike, teaching them that peace could exist if both sides listened. Sometimes he still thought of Earth, the oceans, the cities, the old friends he left behind. But every time he looked at the glowing valleys of Kareth, he felt peace. One evening, as he stood watching the sunset, Lyra approached silently beside him. The air was cool and calm, filled with the hum of life. "You've done more for my people than I ever imagined," she said softly. Eli smiled. "You gave me a reason to." She turned to face him. "Do you ever regret saving my son that day?" He looked at her for a long time, then shook his head. "Not once." That moment gave everything meaning. They stood in silence for a while, watching the twin moons rise above the horizon. Finally, Lyra spoke again. "When I first healed you, I thought I had cursed you. I thought the bond would be a burden. But now I see it was a gift to both of us." Eli nodded slowly. "Maybe that's how peace starts. Not with treaties or weapons, but with one person choosing compassion." She smiled gently. "And one person willing to understand." Eli reached into his armor and touched the pendant she had given him years ago. It still glowed faintly, alive with her essence. "You could have gone home long ago," she said. "I did," he replied softly. "I just didn't know home was here." Lyra's golden eyes shimmered in the moonlight. Together they stood at the edge of the valley, hand in hand, 2 beings from different worlds, joined by fate and choice. The wind carried the sound of laughter from the city below, where human and Raltharan children played together under the stars.